I want to show you some interesting examples. I saw this today on Twitter. I'm going to pull it up for you right now so you can see it. I saw this tweet today from Cassie Dillon. She quote tweeted Gad Saad. Earlier in the week, there was a show with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Megyn Kelly. I'll actually pull up Marjorie Greene's tweet because I think it's important to see. We'll start with that, actually. So this is Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet. Marjorie Greene, like I said, she's an institutional force. She's in Congress. She's an ally of Kevin McCarthy, of Mike Johnson, of Trump, frequent guest on Fox News, has donors, etc. Marjorie Greene went on Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly's a former Fox News host. She was anti-Trump. They get together and they do a show where they're both criticizing Israel. They're both criticizing the conduct of Israel in Gaza, criticizing this suppression tactic where people are called anti-Semitic for legitimate criticisms. This is what she said on Twitter around the same time. She said, quote, "It's not anti-Semitic to disagree with the secular government of Israel and Netanyahu." Now, let's just start there. We're still kind of hung up on this. It's not anti-Semitic. Why do we care? Anti-Semitic is a made-up word. It's a word that means nothing. It was made up by a Jewish historian, popularized by a Jewish historian. It means basically nothing. What is a Semitic person? Does anyone even know what that means? It is an obfuscatory word. Semitic can mean a lot of different things. Arguably, ethnic Palestinians are Semitic. Arguably, ethnic Assyrians are Semitic. What is a Semite? And what does it mean to be an anti-Semite? The Jews, many of them, if you talk to them, they will say that to criticize Israel or its interests is anti-Semitic, whatever that means. To say that Jews accuse Jesus and demand that he be crucified is anti-Semitic. If you say the Jews are loyal to Israel, why are we still so hung up on saying what is or isn't anti-Semitic? I take a position that I don't care. Anti-Semitic speech, whatever that is, should be lawfully protected. And anti-Semitic opinions, or opinions that are called anti-Semitic, deserve to be heard. Because things that previously were universally considered anti-Semitic, now we all realize are true. So I'm actually not so hung up on whether something is anti-Semitic or racist or this, that. I'm more hung up on whether something is true. So that's in the first place. Now she goes.
Let's just be real. People are only willing to go so far. They have their political careers. They have what some people may fear their livelihood. People are only willing to go so far. And the energy always has been a lot different when it comes to Jewish people than a lot of other groups, in my opinion. Black groups, for instance. I think where people are just so fearful, even this outspoken people, like a Megyn Kelly, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, like a Charlie Kirk. Like when I look at Charlie Kirk's energy when it came to how he was interviewing Gavin Newsom, compared to his energy when it comes to how he's breaking down certain issues when it comes to Israel, just calling a spade, it's different. It's different. So when you see a lot of these usual outspoken people, and the reason why I didn't name Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens in that, especially not Candace Owens been letting them hang for a while. You may not agree with her, but she lets them hang for a while. She's been letting them hang for a while. So, but from his perspective, I still totally understand. Like, he's like, yo, forget all of that. You even acknowledging the fact that certain things are anti-Semitic, that's what has protected people from being able to criticize Jewish people, Israel, in the same way that we've been able to criticize other people. And let me be very clear. We all have different goals. My goal is for all of us to come together, figure out a way to live in harmony. That's my goal, like overall top goal. Greater peace. So I think to have that, we need to be critical not only of our quote unquote enemies or the people that we disagree with, but we need to be critical with the people that are on our team, the people we see as our brothers and sisters. So being critical is not, should never be the threat of calling somebody anti-Semitic. Anti what? I don't think that even if you don't think that Israel should exist based on how it was created, anti-Semitic, And then when you understand the history of what Semite actually means, that's what he was referring to earlier, where a lot of people would actually call the Palestinians that are there the most closest to being the Semites, if there's a closeness, or you know what I mean, they would call them the Semites. So it's a lot of this stuff is up in the air, and a lot of people hide behind, well, I'm not sure about this, but let's just be honest, a lot of people they're walking on eggshells when it comes to conversations around Israel and Jewish people in general.
Goes on and says it's not anti-Semitic to disagree with the secular government of Israel and Netanyahu. This is something else I've noticed. Why did she say the secular government of Israel and Netanyahu? Because what she is doing is setting parameters. She is bounding the frame of the discussion. She's saying it is not anti-Semitic, which is to say we care what anti-Semitism is. We care what it is. We're going to argue about what is or isn't anti-Semitic. And we're going to strive not to be anti-Semitic. It matters to us that we are on the right side of that. That's our appeal. I'm not anti-Semitic. I care about what that means. That's a real word, and I'm not that, and I want to make sure I'm not that. And then the next part is to say, we're defining down what we're actually claiming. My claim is that I'm allowed to criticize a one man, Bibi Netanyahu. I'm allowed to criticize the government of Israel, which happens to be secular. Why do they say it's secular? It's to say we're not criticizing Judaism. That's what that means. Why would you say secular government of Israel? Because if you criticize Israel on its face, you're criticizing maybe the global Jewish community, maybe the biblical Israel. If you're criticizing Israel as a nation, maybe you're criticizing the Jewish people that live in Israel, the people of Israel, the Jews that live there, who might be religiously or ethnically Jewish. By saying secular government and Netanyahu, what all you're saying in the statement is, I'm allowed to have a negative attitude or opinion about a bureaucracy, about an institution, which is secular and non-racial and non-ethnic, but just this government, which is like a company, like an LLC, and this guy, Netanyahu. And kind of in the first sentence is contained the whole plot. What is really the claim that she's making? She's saying we're allowed to criticize this one guy.
Yo, and this is what I mean when I say the energy's different. The energy's different. When I see people and they're so strong, they have such strong opinions on slavery and everything else like that. I know it's been recently, people have been talking about, well, slavery wasn't as bad as it was, or just that seems to be the energy that's put out there. The institution of slavery, well, we shouldn't talk about this. We shouldn't just attribute it to white people, even though in America, that was the majority of it, right? And regardless of where you are on that, like I said, the energy seems to be different. Could you imagine if somebody took that and that same energy and questioned, or forget criticized, but questioned certain things when it comes to the Holocaust? But these very same people feel very comfortable criticizing other areas, other groups, slavery, the institution of that. There just seems to be like, just calling a spade a spade. Just calling a spade a spade. And in my opinion, it's not doing a service to anybody. It's like when you have a special treatment with somebody in the classroom. It may benefit that child or student in the classroom to have that special treatment in some areas, but what it's going to do is going to create a lot of ill feelings amongst the other kids and resentment towards that kid. And I think that's what's happening right now, where you have a the perfect recipe, imperfect recipe, however you want to look at it, where you have what's going on in Israel and Palestine, along with a few other things where people are getting fed up with the reasons why they're justifying doing certain things to Palestine, saying that it's with Hamas, but they're justifying it based on them seen as victims and embracing this victimhood. This is happening to me. Everything's October 7th, so I can justify doing any and everything to Palestinians. It's the same mindset that was with Iraq. It's like we went in there for weapons of mass destruction. Who's the lady? Madeleine Albright. When she was asked whether it was worth it killing 500,000 children with the war in Iraq, and her response was, yeah, we think it was justified, when I believe that's when they were looking for the weapons of mass destructions, when the entire time they didn't even find the weapons of mass destructions. So neither here nor there. I know I'm talking about a bunch of different things. I'm going to get back to the video, but victimhood and overdoing the victimhood, it creates resentment on one area, but what it also creates is an entitled mindset amongst the other group that feels they can do any and everything, and they should have free will to just do what perhaps is going on right now. Well, you don't have to say perhaps. What's just going on right now with in Gaza? Let's keep going.
We're allowed to criticize this one guy that leads this contentless institution. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. You have said nothing. That's like saying, I don't think it's racist to not like Barack Obama. Or even better, it's not racist to disagree with Obama. Yeah, no one is arguing it's racist to disagree with Obama. No one's arguing it's anti-Semitic to disagree with Netanyahu. What we are saying is that anti-Semitism is a made-up word. That word has been used to suppress the truth. What truth? The truth, which is that Jewish oligarchs have a disproportionate amount of influence in America. And they are networked transnationally, and they use their Jewish ethnicity as the rallying point, as the organizing principle. They are tribalist. That is our assertion. Do you see the difference? Do you understand the difference between someone saying, I would never criticize Judaism, I would never criticize the Jews. My problem is not with the Jews, American or otherwise. I'm not anti-Semitic. I care deeply about that word. All I'm saying is this. I'm only, when someone says I'm only saying this, only is narrowing. When they say I'm just saying this, it's minimizing. It's narrowing and minimizing the claim, saying, oh, hey, I'm not criticizing Jews. I'm not criticizing Judaism. I'm not criticizing American Jews or Jewish oligarchs. I'm not criticizing this big arrangement. Okay, anyway, she goes on. She writes, many Jews disagree with the secular government of Israel and Netanyahu. There it is. However, it's something else entirely sinister to coordinate a smear campaign with lies and name-calling against those of us who disagree with the secular government of Israel and want to end all forms of foreign aid and funding of foreign wars for all foreign countries. Now she's doing something else here. She's saying it's sinister to call me an anti-Semite. Yeah, they're lying about you. You want to know why? Because they don't care that you don't hate Jews. Do you understand that? She's saying, I'm being called an anti-Semite for disagreeing with Netanyahu. No, you're being called a name in bad faith because you are opposing their political interests. And yeah, that's evil, but that's part of the deal. She goes on, she says, all I'm saying is I disagree with this guy. I want to end all U.S. aid and all foreign wars for all countries. What's she doing here?
She's being naive. Like, let's just be honest. You criticizing Bibi Netanyahu is clearly doing things that a large portion of the population wants done. So therefore, when you criticize Bibi Netanyahu, what are you really criticizing? You're criticizing, in their mind, their existence. You're criticizing and calling out the fact that they have some sort of influence in American politics. You're criticizing a lot more than Bibi Netanyahu, even though you're trying to act as if or put out this narrative that you're just criticizing Bibi Netanyahu. And what Nick Fuentes is pointing out is the fact that it's only making you look weak and it's contributing more and more to the problem.
She's making it general. She's denying that there is a particular problem with Israel, which there is. Do you know of any other countries that we are funding their government in such a disproportionate way and their wars with a disproportionate amount of influence? Some might say Ukraine. Well, there's a reason we fund Ukraine and have been funding Ukraine. It's because Washington, D.C. sees it as our war. We're not funding Ukraine's war. We overthrew Yanukovych in 2014 because we, America, wanted Ukraine to be a U.S. outpost, because we wanted to use that against Russia, our enemy. And when Russia annexed Crimea and supported the secessionists and invaded, we saw that as conflicting with our interest. And by giving Ukraine weapons, we're degrading the capability of our enemy, Russia. So, you know, that's always the argument I hear. People say, well, what about Ukraine? What about Ukraine? Let's distinguish this. The reason the U.S. government supports Ukraine has nothing to do with Ukraine and everything to do with Russia, our enemy, that our government is obsessed with. And the reason we're giving Ukraine money is not because of a Ukrainian influence lobby. It's not because there's a Ukrainian lobby that is giving money to our politicians in Congress to authorize weapons packages. It's not because all of the American media is owned by Ukrainians who are sympathetic to Ukraine. It is because there is a security interest. The military and strategic doctrine of the United States is such that we believe Ukraine joining NATO is consistent with our interest. Whereas supporting Israel, the same cannot be said here. So anyway, that's just to eliminate that example. Is there any other country that receives more foreign aid than Israel? No. Israel's number one, Egypt is number two, Jordan is number three, and all of those are a roundabout way of supporting Israel. Is there any other country that we support their war to our detriment? Because it is detrimental for us. Going to war in Iran is detrimental. Going to war, what they're doing in Gaza, the genocide, is detrimental. Going to war in Iraq was detrimental. Is there any other example you can think of?
And I think one of the biggest issues is that we're seeing this as a moral problem. Like when we see what's going on with Palestine as a moral issue, it's hard to watch. We don't agree with it. A large portion of people just do not agree with, to the extent that Israel's going about, quote unquote, defending themselves. We don't believe that Bibi Netanyahu is doing any of this for any other reason than to get rid of a large portion of Palestinians and to remove them off that land, and for Israel to take more control of more land. That's what we believe. So now anything else that attaches to Israel, we're already feeling it or seeing it through a lens where we don't like what they're doing, or we don't see them as moving with morals. So now we're looking at everything else that they do a funny way. Whether that's with Iran. No, we're not willing to send our troops to Iran. We're not willing to get into a war with Iran and let Bibi Netanyahu just say, oh, because they have weapons of mass destruction or they got a nuclear weapon. You already did that with Iraq. You came to America. I forget who was president. Was it Barack that was president, where you came in Congress, I believe, or you spoke to America, just like you've been trying to speak to America lately, to try to convince Americans that something is in our best interest, where Iran, they call America the big Satan, and Israel, they're the small little Satan, and that they tried to assassinate Donald Trump. Nope. And then Ted Cruz comes out and says, no, he misspoke. That wasn't true. But then Bibi Netanyahu was still saying it, doubling down, tripling down. We're not willing, a lot of people, I do not want, let me speak from my perspective. I do not want Americans or anybody else for that matter contributing to a war to push something that I don't believe aligns with my moral compass, to push an atrocity, to push what I believe is now or has become a genocide. Who? I keep saying who. I don't want that. And I don't think that a lot of Americans are wanting that. And that's where we're starting to see the pushback. That's where you're starting to see the tide turning, which is just represented in the Megyn Kellys and Charlie Kirks specifically. And then Nick Fuentes, he would probably say Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens.
There is not. The Israeli complex is unique and remarkable and exceptional. And it has to do with the fact that we have a large American Jewish population with extraordinary influence. We don't fight China's wars. We don't fight Mexico's wars, even though we have a lot of Chinese and Mexicans living here. We don't fight India's wars. We only fight Israel's wars. Israel's the number one recipient of foreign aid in such a wildly disproportionate way that no other country has that arrangement. But she's making it general and saying there's nothing, excuse me, there's nothing particular going on with Israel. We're just against foreign aid ideologically. We're against all foreign aid, all foreign wars, all this, that, and the other. She goes on, I've never attacked Jewish people and they know it. Yet they persecute me with lies and slander for criticizing the secular government of Israel and their wars. Was this written by Laura Loomer? The repetition is psychotic. Laura Loomer does that. All her posts are repeating herself over and over and over again. She says, but their arrows fall short and their swords are dull and don't penetrate. I can and will criticize any government, including my own. There are good-hearted people of all kinds in America, Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and more. I'm striving to steer clear of stereotypes. United we stand, divided we fall. I will always speak out against and fight against evil, murder of children, all terrorism, criminals, monsters. However, by joining with all Americans, regardless of race, religion, or political affiliation, who desperately want us to save America by fighting for America only, this is how we stand united, blah, blah, blah. This is what I would call, I don't even know what you would call this. This is the limited hangout. This is by definition the limited hangout. Because once again, let's be very clear. America has a huge Jewish population. New York City is the capital of world Jewry. There's as many Jews living in America as there are in Israel, I believe. And the Jews in America are more powerful and wealthy than the Jews in Israel. They're richer. We have Jewish billionaires. We have Jews in control of institutions like BlackRock, which run the world. Jews in control of institutions like the Federal Reserve. Jews in control of the U.S. State Department, which conducts diplomacy on behalf of the most powerful country in the world. This is unique. It cannot be said about any other group. Not the Chinese, not the Indians, not the Arabs, not the Mexicans. Only the Jews have this unique diaspora, have this unique position of influence in America. And they use their very unique position, their tribal loyalty, to organize in these various federations and societies and groups, college fraternities, Jewish federations, Jewish congresses, Jewish interest groups like ADL, like AIPAC, like B'nai B'rith, you name it. They organize every Saturday on Shabbat at these dinners. They have the Republican Jewish Coalition. They have J Street. They have all these different institutions. And they get together and organize on behalf of themselves. They ask the question, what is good for the Jews as a community? They ask the question, what is good for the Jews? Not what is good for America, not what is good for Europe, not what is good for the West. They host symposiums and write articles and community debates about what is in their best interest as a distinct transnational group. How best to pursue their collective benefit. And they use their power collectively in an organized way to execute their interest, which involves America supporting Israel, a base of operations for them. That's the problem. And here Marjorie Greene comes in and says, I don't have a problem with Jews. I don't have a problem with Jewish people. All I'm saying is I disagree with Netanyahu. Don't hate me. I have a problem with all foreign aid, all foreign wars, all this stuff. I think there's many Jews that disagree with Netanyahu. They're fine. And it's like, look, the problem is not that Netanyahu is a rotten egg who's genociding people. The problem is not that America just happens to give foreign aid to Israel. The problem is not that Marjorie Taylor Greene happens to be in the crosshairs of the Jewish community because of a misunderstanding. It's a system. It's a system. Netanyahu has been propelled to power in Israel because he is a ruthless Jewish nationalist who has enjoyed immense popularity throughout his tenure. The policies he is pursuing are supported by the breadth of the Israeli population. He is able to do it with the support of America because he has allies that have infiltrated our government and society. Rupert Murdoch, who runs Fox News, has donated to Netanyahu's campaigns. And the reason that we give Israel foreign aid is because of this vast influence network maintained by American Jews. And the reason she's being called an anti-Semite is because part of their control mechanism is to isolate and reputationally assassinate and deny anyone that is hip to their operation and criticizing it, anyone that stands in the way of their interest. So she's painting this picture of like, this is all just some big mistake. This is all some big accident. Israel is just arbitrarily the country that is getting all this aid. Netanyahu is this evil dictator that we're arbitrarily supporting. She is being called a Jew hater in a dishonest way as a result of some misunderstanding or there's this impropriety. No, that's the system working as intended, as designed.
Do you think that she should do all this explaining? Does this make it worse? Does this make it better? Or should she just communicate as directly as she communicates with other issues? Now, it's a unique situation for all the reasons that Nick Fuentes has pointed out, for all the reasons that a lot of us are aware of. There's a lot of powerful people. She's a politician, and there's a lot of powerful people that are Jewish and that support Israel and that support exactly what Bibi Netanyahu's doing. And even if they don't agree 100% with Bibi Netanyahu's doing, they're still going to go with it. So should she just communicate directly and just totally disregard the fact that people are criticizing and just say exactly how she feels? Is she weakening her argument when she does stuff like this and feels like she has to explain everything? I don't know. Y'all tell me. We're going to take a little bit of a break and then we'll be back.